All right, thank you, Diana. Well, every Wednesday night, we like to get a window on Washington with one of New York's newsmakers in the nation's capital. Tonight, one of the 361 members of Congress who voted to pass that credit card Bill of Rights earlier today, Eric Massa, is the representative for New York's 29th district, which spans much of the Southern Tier, Finger Lakes, and the greater Rochester region. Joining us tonight from Washington, D.C. And Congressman, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad we're going to have a chance to talk about this credit card Bill of Rights, a very important piece of legislation to help Americans.
Well, a number of things to talk to you about, but let's start there because as you just said, and as you said in a press release earlier today, you clearly support this legislation, not just by voting for it, but by saying that it is a very good piece of legislation to protect consumers. But as you know, Congressman, there are critics out there as well, most notably from the banking side of things. The American Bankers Association saying that this legislation would actually force higher rates across the board.
I'm sorry, I can't help but chuckle because I saw on television the other night a TV advertisement claiming how these credit card companies had reached out and helped so many in a time of distress. That's kind of like Robin Hood being helped by the wolf into the woods. Let's all be very, very clear. One of the most common experiences in America today is what credit card companies are doing to families in distress, to adolescents, high school and college students who are at risk, and to families who are struggling just to get by. This bill addresses that very, very clearly. And frankly, if you want to believe that Citibank and Citicorp, and what's that one, what's in your wallet, and a bunch of barbarians come out of your back pocket, well, actually, that's pretty accurate because that's what's in your wallet. If you think that's the way to go, then let your life's experience tell you they're telling the truth.
But on that point, Congressman, is there any credence at all to the argument that those organizations you just named advance, which is that this would penalize those with good credit and who pay their cards on time because those banks would thereby be forced to charge everyone a higher interest rate?
Absolutely not true. This is what they do with the bait and switch. Ask yourself the question, do you think it's right that if a credit card bill arrives within 1 day of being due and you've got to turn around and get it back, that your base interest rates somehow magically go from 9% to 28%? The credit card industry has been using and abusing the American public. Period.
Well, let's change gears. Lots of other things to talk about, as just mentioned. Yesterday,
sure,
the U.S. Senate followed in the House's footsteps and rejected the president's request for $80 million to close the Guantanamo Bay prison facility. Today, the Senate passed a measure that would prevent detainees at the Guantanamo Bay facility from being moved to the United States and put in prisons here. Interesting interplay going on in Washington where President Obama has been saying, look, even if we close Gitmo, it will not make us less safe here. And today, you had the director of the FBI, a member of his own administration, saying quite the opposite. It would make us less safe by putting these people in our prison system where they could perhaps do more harm. Congressman, how does the president reconcile that difference?
Well, isn't this different from what we saw 5 years ago when a single party controlled by a single White House marched in lockstep wherever that president wanted to take us, including places that we had no reason to be? And the very critical issue that you just brought up about what to do in Guantanamo is a classic example of the interplay, or perhaps the play out, of this debate in the public eye instead of the backfilled rooms with secret deals and negotiations. Frankly, I think it's very healthy.
Well, given the way then that the House voted and that the Senate voted and what Director Mueller said today, is the president wrong to say that closing Guantanamo Bay would not make us less safe on American soil?
I think the advisors to the President of the United States are now invited to sit down with those who have great concerns about this policy and work out a solution, understanding that where we have been taken over the past 5 years with this particular problem, a secret on semi-foreign soil, at least on American property in Cuba, out of mind or out of sight, is not what we want. And yet the rapid solutions that have been put in front of us don't authorize an answer either, and the problems have not been fully answered. So we welcome the president's advisors to enter into a true negotiation to solve this problem. But telling us this is the way it's going to be without answering those questions, that's probably not going to fly either.
A somewhat related issue now, obviously, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi under increasing fire these days with respect to her comments regarding the CIA, what she claims they did not tell her with respect to enhanced interrogation techniques they were using that she disagrees with. Congressman Darrell Issa, a Republican from California today, called on the FBI to investigate, not her, but the claim that the CIA was misleading Congress, because he says, if that's true, it undermines my job on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, could you support an investigation like that?
I'd like to get to the bottom of this. We're in kind of a, no pun intended, he said, she said situation. And if the American public, and frankly that includes members of Congress, are able to see exactly what the reality was, then perhaps we can all do our jobs better. But the bottom line here is somehow the argument and the discussion has shifted from the merits of torture to the merits of who said what when. I was just on the phone with retired general and admirals who have joined me in saying it should not be the function of our government to have an official policy that condones torture. And from my own military background, more than 2 decades, and having reached out to mentors and very close friends of mine who were prisoners of war in Vietnam, frankly, including the testimony of Senator John McCain, one of the most well-known individuals in that category, who certainly was tortured beyond all human limits, and yet who says you cannot rely for tactical and actionable intelligence by the use of torture. You will always go down the wrong road. So I listen to the experts on this, and I think we need to return to the fundamental debate, which, by the way, just as recently as 4 months ago, and before, administration officials prior to the change of the administrations were saying torture never happened. And now the discussion is not about whether it occurred or not, whether it was right or not, wrong or not. It's who said what to Speaker Pelosi. So let's clear that third argument off the table and get back to national policy, and more importantly, figure out how to move forward. That's where I'm looking.
Congressman Eric Massa, always an enlightening conversation, sir. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you back home.
You got it.